All right. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to show you some of the new things in AdaCAD that we've been working on behind the scenes for the last few months. And so what I'm doing today in this video is just giving you a preview of what we're calling AdaCAD 5. So without further ado, I will go ahead and share my screen if I can understand this new version of Zoom. Okay, there's my screen. All right, so right now, AdaCAD 5 is still in a testing version. So if you are not open to a little experimentation, if you want something more stable, if you want to go with it's already tried and true, just use the standard AdaCAD at adacad.org. If you're interested in trying this new version and ideally giving us a little bit of feedback, you can find it on the internet at adacad-5.web.app, and I'll share that in the link below. And so what you'll see is something that looks a whole lot like the AdaCAD that you might be used to. We still have all the normal content here on the top bar. You have login on the sidebar here. We have our operations and things, and we can toggle the advanced versions. What I want to do today is maybe just talk you through some of the newer features. So I'm going to actually start by opening an example. So let's go ahead and open our image weaving. All right, so things look maybe a little different. What I did here is you'll see that the actual sizing when you zoom in and out is slightly different. So as you zoom out, the text gets bigger. As you zoom in, the text gets smaller. So hopefully it's a little bit more balanced as you zoom in and out. What you'll also notice is that in regions where you're generating an image that's quite a bit large, it's going to show you this warning that says this is going to be hidden by default. The reason I'm doing that is because a huge amount of the slowdowns for AdaCAD previously were in image rendering. So if you have a draft that's over a given side, it's just going to ask you explicitly to render it. All right, so there it is. And for now, I've made that size 2500. So a draft where you have um, let's say 500 warps and 50 wefts. As long as there's 2,500 interlacements, it's going to hide it. If you do want to change that, you can go into settings, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and change this number here. Okay, so if things are really slow on your computer, you can make that number lower. If you have a high performance computer and you're finding it's doing fine, you can make that a higher number. It's totally open to just playing. Okay, you'll also see that the connections are styled a little bit differently. What you're seeing is that as I click on each different operation, it shows that operation in the viewer, but it also bolds the connections that go from that operation and where they chain all the way down. What's kind of helpful now is I wanted there to be more feedback so people know when computation is happening. So if I come in here and say change my shaded satin, you'll see that every operation that's affected by that change will also change color. Okay. Um, all right, a few more other kind of helpful features. We can do a shift select, and that will enable you to multi-select things on the workspace so you can move them around in groups. And if you want to deselect, you can do that here. Another thing down here is I made the undo a little bit more snazzy and robust. So you'll notice if I undo, it'll undo all those size changes I did, and it'll kind of highlight where that undo took place. The slider is a bit more responsive, and with the help from some community developers, you can also zoom in and out using your mouse pad or pan across the image if you have. I need to still figure that out a little bit. I'm coming. My computer doesn't do it quite the same as people who work with a mouse and mouse wheel. But of course, I have this little zoom to fit over here. Okay. So another new feature, aside from just like performance features to make it work faster, is that we have a third design mode. So we've always had Mixer and we've had Editor, but now we also have this mode called Library. And what Library is really intended to do is to be almost like just a project home base. So if you need to think about your project and all the assets it involves, you can use this library mode. You can give your project a title, a description. If you've uploaded any images for image map, it'll show them here. And then it'll show you all the drafts you've created in these grid layout in a card mode. So you'll see that each draft is its own little card. And you can change the name there. You can say like my shaded satin, save, and you can also write a few notes. This one is kind of floaty, for instance. So this is a place to kind of annotate. What's helpful about it is if you're working across a system like AdaCAD and Photoshop, it allows you to just download all the bitmaps at once. Um, and you don't actually have to download everything. You can hide some. So you're like, I don't really need this image or any of these. I just want to download my satins. You can go and hide those selected drafts. And what that'll do is it'll hide them here and on the mixer, it'll collapse them down so they're not drawing their images. So it's another way to just save space. Um, okay, another thing you can do here is import drafts. So if you want to import bitmap images as seed drafts or import from WIF files, you can do that from the library. You can also do it from the home screen and just say import drafts. All right. Another kind of interesting feature is if you have a draft here selected that you want to look at, you can click across and see those. You can go down here and say, open this draft in the mixer, and it'll zoom directly to that draft. So if you get lost in your mixer and you just need to see everything and find it, you can always go to the library and locate it there. The other thing about the library is that we have put all the materials in the library. So this used to be something you would have to go to the materials box to do, but now they're just here. So you can change a material color and save the changes. You can change the diameter of the material. You can change the name, and that'll change it globally. Some of you have requested ways to upload your own palettes, and I think there could still be a more user-friendly workflow, but for now, I allow you to export your materials as a CSV file, so to open in Excel or Numbers or something like that. And then you can import materials from a CSV file. So if there's a color palette you like to work with and you want to just import that, you can do that here. Okay, one more new update that is kind of fun. For any draft now, if you hit download, you will also be presented with the option to download a selected draft as a coloring page. So if I clicked that, it will download drafty.pdf. And let me go ahead and open that and share it. Here we go. So this is drafty.pdf. You can print this out on your printer and color it in and play with different color combinations. Um, I don't know why, I just thought that was fun. Okay, I will go back to the AdaCAD window now. All right, so another new feature, which is still, we're working out the kinks, is over here in the viewer. So again, the viewer has zoom. I made this pin feature more prominent. So let's say pin works really well when you want to see what the output is, like what happens with my output when I change an input. So I'm going to go ahead and pin Ada here. And then if I go and change, let's say warp facing, you'll see exactly what effect that had on the output draft. And this pin is big and pink to kind of remind you that that's why it's the only thing showing in the viewer. So we'll go ahead and unpin. We can expand this or hide it. We can go back to our structures and we can still view it as a structure, a draft, and I'm still working on getting this simulation more robust. So you can see the simulation of the satin here. It should also respond to your material settings. So if I go in with black and I say my diameter of my warp is 1.25, it gets thicker. You can also adjust some of the settings in the simulation. Right now, the ones that work the best are like pack. So let's say you're not beating as hard as you can on every pick. You can sort of say, okay, I'm going to do it light or I'm going to do it heavy. You can also sort of manually play with warp density and see how that actually affects your structure. And so behind the scenes, it's actually doing some calculations that estimate packing based on the proximity of different interlacements. But again, these are features that are still in development. But I thought I'd share them just in case people wanted to try them. And of course, feedback is really welcome. Okay, so let's go back to our mixer because the next thing I want to do is show you some of the newer operations that we have added. Uh, so I'm going to go ahead and start a new workspace. It's a new blank workspace. And I'm going to drop in some of our new operations. One is called Bitfield. We also have a Sierpinski square. These are all little structure generators based on different mathematical principles or generative algorithms that organize bits in space. Let's see. We also have this random tree. Do, 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 do. And I wanted to show you some changes that happened with tile, with creating material sequences, and lastly, creating threading and treadling sequences. Okay, so Bitfield is a contribution by Alex McLean, who was studying this kind of way of representing generating drafts mathematically. And so Bitfield basically takes a function, x, y, and it's going to control what heddles are lifted and lowered or which cells are black and white based on how they evaluate with this function. From what I understand, x means like which number warp it is. So 1, 2, 3 being warps from the origin outward. And y has to do with the wefts. So if I think this is x raised to y has a remainder when you divide it by 3 of 0, you're going to get one cell or you're going to get another cell. I don't understand this fully, but I have to say it's super fun to play with. So if I come here and change this to 5, I evaluate it to a different function. If I just come and say x, I just get 1 or 0 down this column. Y, I would get it the other way. Oops. You'll also see here that the text field update is a little bit different. Say x times y. Okay. So yeah, everywhere where it evaluates to 0, you get a white cell, and everywhere else you get a black cell. So that's the Bitfield function. Go ahead and play with it. The Sierpinski square was created by, I believe, by Jenny Lin at the Carnegie Mellon Textiles Lab a few years ago during one of our collaborations. And it is an algorithm that subdivides a space into squares. So I can come here and set my size. I can set how many subdivisions I want there to be, and I can set the facing. Again, do with this what you'd like. The random tree is another kind of fun one in that it's always going to create something new and different. So you give it a block size, like 26 by 26. And then you basically tell it what likelihood at every step do we want a new branch to form in this tree? And what is the probability that that branch is going to grow out sideways? So as I raise the probability, we'll get wider and wider trees. And as I kind of lower the probability of new branches, we'll get kind of more open shapes. So again, this is just another way of creating kind of generative, interesting structures. No, they're not weavable yet, but you can manipulate them in AdaCAD and fill them with structures or overlay them with a satin, um, if you want to kind of explore what role they might have in woven draft making. Another thing that I want to show you that's exciting is we can hide this whole panel. Um, See, that's right at the top there. If we want to hide that side panel, it doesn't have to take up space. And then if we want to add an operation, we just click that operation pane. Okay, next function is tile. So let's go ahead and tile our tree that we just made. I'll load that rendering. So tile still has warp repeats and weft repeats. But what it now offers is the option to offset the tiling so that you can do more of a brick style tiling. The offset is in terms of, I think it's in terms of percentage. Yeah. So if I say 50, it's going to offset the second row by 50%. I can also change it to say I want it to tile vertically instead of horizontally. So you can get some interesting tiling and repeat patterns there. Okay, next we have these different functions that convert number or letter sequences into drafts. And so this is where I was thinking it might be fun to actually create different threading or color sequences based on data. So if you have any data set in a CSV file, or if you save a text file with a really long string of numbers that you want to use for a threading. So for instance, if you want to create a threading with warp 1 in frame 1, warp 2 in frame 1, warp 3 in frame 2, you would use the number sequence 1, 1, 2. So it's going to go down the line and it's going to assign one sort of pick or one little black cell to the frame based on the number. So you can see here, I have the sequence 1, 1, 2, 2, 3. And I have it so you can do this on threading. You can also use this in older functions like undulate wefts, or you can do it to create material sequences. So let's just start with threading because that one maybe is a little bit easier. I can make a threading that 2, 2, 1, 1, 1, 4, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, save. And it'll just generate me that threading sequence. I can also determine if I want this to be my threading sequence or my treadling, or it can give you both. So you can do something, use each of these as input to something else. I also allow that same input model now for colors. So if we go into our materials, you'll see that every color has a number assigned to it, and that's just in terms of its order. So whatever color you have as 0 can be referenced by the number 0, and then 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and so on. So if I go back here and I say, make me a color sequence that's 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 0, 3, 4, 5, for instance, and I hit save, it's going to, oops, uh-oh, zoomed in a little too aggressively there. Get back here. Um, there we go. It's going to create this color sequence here where we have 1, 1, 1, white, 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 2, 2, orange, orange, yellow, black, oh, no, tangerine, black, tangerine, yellow, green, and so on. So let's say you wanted to create a gradient warp. This would be a much easier way to do that rather than to have to select every pixel. So that's just a summary of some of the new operations. One final thing I'd like to show you is some of the new features in the draft editor. So let's go ahead and make, I'm going to say generate direct tie. Okay, and I'm going to make this 4 frames and I'm going to give it, oops, I did it the wrong way. Delete. It's make drawdown from threading and lift plan. So I'm going to give it this threading and this lift plan, and I get this draft. Okay, so now I can open this draft in the editor either by selecting the 3 dots and saying open in editor, or by just switching over to the editor here. Okay, so in the editor, it looks mostly the same, but I did a lot of work behind the scenes just making this work more reliably. So you can change your, oh my gosh, of course it's not working. You can report that as a bug. Oh, that's because I have not enabled edits. Because this was directed or generated by an operation, um, you have to explicitly enable edits. So I'm going to enable it. Here we go. Now I can change these different values. Um, but another thing I made a lot more intuitive is the selection. So you can hit select or you can click the shift button and drag. Okay. And then I can go over here to select copy. I can drag to another region and I can select paste. I can also go in here and shift the pattern left or right, up or down. I can flip it in either direction. And most of these apply across any area of the draft. So for instance, I could go in here, I say clear selection, and make a color sequence like black, um, yellow, green. Then I can hit shift and drag. I can copy this and, oops, I can copy this and paste it. And that'll just tile my color sequence. Okay. So there's a lot of new things to explore and play with. There's still quite a few others that may not be working 100% correctly. As the pre-release version, I'm relying on you, the community members, to try it out. See what you think of it, and please, please, please share your honest feedback. If something got worse, do let me know. If something feels better, do let me know. Sometimes it's nice to have a balance of the negative and positive. One thing I hope everyone notices with this new version is that I did a lot of behind the scenes work to make sure it didn't crash, or if it did crash, that the changes are saved and that you can reload what you did. So maybe test it out. Make some really big files, make some really complicated things, and see if it's working better for you. I really, really, truly appreciate it. And I hope you guys all have a great start to your new year. Feel free to drop your questions, ideas in the Discord channel, and I will be monitoring that daily to get back to you if you have any questions or ideas. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.